What's up, friends? Welcome to this week's episode. Today I'm in the 2026 Acura MDX. Now, you might be able to tell from my surroundings, from all this red leather around me, that I'm not in your standard everyday run-of-the-mill MDX. I'm in one just a little bit more special. Now, you can, of course, get the red leather on trims that aren't the top trim. You can get them on some mid-tier trims, but I do happen to be in the top trim. This is the MDX Type S Advance, and that means I have something that you can't get on the lower trims. You can only get it on this trim, and it is this engine. So all other MDXs get a naturally aspirated 3.5 liter V6. That makes 290 horsepower, which is nothing to scoff at. That's a good number. But this engine is a turbocharged 3 liter V6, and it makes 355 horsepower. Now, that's not a huge jump up in power, but it is a nice bump. So the MDX starts at its base trim as a front-wheel drive 290 horsepower engine. That will set you back $53,000 after destination. This trim, the top, the Type S Advance, will set you back $77,000. And I, of course, have the beautiful blue paint, which is an extra cost option. It's not a huge extra cost. I think it might be $600, but it is not included. So mine is just a little bit higher than 77. I think I'm at 77.8 as a final, as tested price. Let's talk about this interior. I mentioned the red leather before. I'm a big fan of this interior. I really like this. This is kind of the prototypical MDX that you'd see in the ads. The blue exterior, the red and black interior. It just looks good. It's a really good looking space to sit in. I think it's really snazzy. I don't know that I would buy it for myself because every day it might get to be a little bit much, but like I've said before, in a press car, in a car that the media is given to review and test, I think cars should be the crazy colors. They should be the off-the-wall options, and this one is that. Although it's not too crazy. This is livable. It's a really nice interior. This is one of the biggest changes. In 2025, Acura got rid of their True Touch interface, their touchpad that used to be right here. I would say maybe that's a controversial opinion, but I've never met anybody who liked it. I've only met people that complained about it. The screen was not a touch screen, so the only way you could interact with your screen was with the touchpad, and it was finicky, it was annoying, it didn't quite work the way you expected it to. It didn't work like a standard computer trackpad. It was a little bit like, if you wanted the top right of this screen, you had to touch in the top right of that touchpad. And that's just not how we're wired to think anymore after decades of laptop usage. So I don't think it's that controversial of a decision. I think Acura read the opinions of media and their customers, and they said, nobody really likes this, so let's get rid of it. So last year, for the 2025 model year, they did. And now here we are with this touchpadless center console. And because we no longer have a touchpad, this screen is now a more traditional touchscreen. It's a 12.3-inch screen. It's a really nice screen. I don't love when screens are too big. I like even less when screens are vertical. So this is a nice, it's big, but it's not too big. It's not like in your face. It's a 12.3-inch screen. It's horizontal, it's crisp. It isn't glossy. It has kind of that like a matte covering that Honda and Acura do. And I think it's a really successful screen. It's sharp, it's the right size, it's not taking my focus away from the road, but it's not too far out of my eye line. So I'm a big fan of this screen. There's also not a whole lot going on in the screen. Honda and Acura have really allowed people to use the phones if they want to. There's also Google built in, there's Google Maps built in without your phone. So they're really giving you options to use the system the way that you want, which I incredibly appreciate. There's too many automakers that are taking out phone projections so they can sell you data plans, and that just feels so anti-consumer to me. In moving away from the touchpad and making a touchscreen now the main way you interact with the system, you might fear that everything else became touch enabled, but that's not the case. We have a ton of physical knobs, switches, dials, buttons. Down here, it's still a very analog system. this center area can be a little confusing when you first sit in because there are a lot of buttons and there's this giant dynamic mode knob here in the middle that if you haven't been in one of these vehicles before, you're like, what is that? That's huge. It's a big knob dedicated for one specific thing. So maybe that doesn't need to be quite as big, but I like that it's there. It's kind of the centerpiece. It catches your eye. The gear shifter are buttons. Again, these buttons take a little bit of getting used to, but I think it's pretty intuitive. You get it pretty quickly. But all of this center area is piano black plastic. It's that shiny plastic. So both the number of buttons, the quantity of buttons, and the shininess does make this feel just a little bit overwhelming at first. But I do think it is intuitive, and I think you get it pretty quickly. All of your climate buttons are here. Your seat controls, like ventilated seats, your heated seats, I don't even know what that is. I think is that both? I'm not even sure what is that a massage? Do I have massage? I do have massage. Wow. So heated, ventilated, massaging seats in this Type S Advance. Wow. So this is kind of like an ideal setup. A good, crisp, not too big touchscreen, and everything else is down here as an analog option. All that being said, I do think this is going to change. This is still the older system. It's still a nice system. It's still Acura's high-end system, but it is older. Other Acuras I've been in recently, the Integra Type S and the ADX, and almost all Honda products, they have completely revamped their interiors, and there is a very specific kind of minimalist vibe that is happening in them, and I do think this will get updated to that pretty soon. I don't know when. That's my overall impression up here. Oh, I should also say this driver display is fully digital, as you might expect. It's really crisp, it's really clean, and what I like when you do use this giant dynamic mode dial, your dashboard, your tachometer and odometer and speedometer change to fit your drive mode. So I put it into sport mode. Now everything's red. It's classy. You also really feel a difference when you put it into sport mode. You can feel the acceleration. It gets a little more jumpy. The transmission wants to hold your gear a little bit longer, so you're going to rev a little bit higher, and then it will switch faster. So on downshifts, you can actually feel it be a little bit jumpy when you're in sport mode, but I think that's just to make it more responsive. So now I finally have some open road. Yeah, okay. So you can feel that engine. It's not going to blow your hair back, but it is a nice bit of power. I do really enjoy the driving. So MDX, what is the MDX? It is Acura's 3-row crossover. It's a mid-size crossover though. So what that means, as it means in most mid-size 3 rows, is that yes, you have a 3rd row, but no, it's not going to be huge. And no, it's not going to be super comfortable for everybody that you wish could fit back there. This is really, I think, for a person that needs 2 rows, needs 4 or 5 maybe passengers regularly, and every once in a while needs that option to have a 3rd row for passengers 6 and 7. This is not a full-time, if you have somebody that's always going to be in that 3rd row, almost no mid-size crossovers are going to be for you. That's how it works. At that point, if you need a constant 3rd row, you're going to have to jump up to a minivan, to a full-size SUV, or 2 different cars. I don't know. That'd be weird. But so yes, there is a 3rd row, but it is not huge. I can fit back there. I did fit back there, but my knees are very much touching the back. There is no space, and it's not super comfortable. But again, I think that's what you expect. Nothing is out of the ordinary with that commentary. With that 3rd row down, the cargo space is huge. Again, as many midsize with optional 3rd rows are, they have a big cargo space when not using that 3rd row. So I think there's a lot of flexibility in a vehicle like this if you don't always need to have 6 or 7 people. The thing I do love is when you have options, right? So you have the option to add that 3rd row, to add seats 6 or 7. But what might be a more interesting feature of this car, of this MDX, and a couple different Hondas and Acuras do this, is the ability to take seats away. That might be a little counterintuitive for me to say that I'm excited by the chance to take seats away, but it is very cool. The center seat, the middle seat in the middle row, that can be easily removed. Now, why that is cool, it just gives you more options. So you can have 5 seats with a big cargo area, or you can take that seat away. That means you essentially gave yourself captain's row seats in the middle. That makes getting into the 3rd row so much easier. You don't have to crawl. You're still going to be crawling into the 3rd row, but you're not climbing over that kind of weird hump when you're getting in the side. So you can get into the third row easier, and once you're in the third row, anybody who is, for a long period of time or not, stuck in that third row, you now have space to put your feet, to kind of stretch out at least one of your legs into that space vacated by that middle seat. So I think that's a really useful thing. If you don't want to take it out and you only have, let's say, 4 people, you can also lean that seat forward, and then it becomes 2 cup holders and a little place to hold your stuff, which, again, it's just a wildly functional thing to have that seat be so, it can be so many things. It can be there, be a seat, you can fold it down, it's cup holders, or you take it away and you add capacity or you add flexibility. You have a lot of ways that you can kind of mold this vehicle to what you need it to be. And I think that's pretty cool. So that is a feature that I really like about this interior. That's a really great feature. Something I do want to mention that I rarely mention in my reviews, because I'm not an audiophile. I'm just not. I'm usually listening to podcasts or audiobooks, but every once in a while I will listen to music when my son is not in here demanding Danny Go or Pokemon. So we listen to a lot of that. And I'm glad when I don't have to quite do that right now. But I have been listening to music more this week in this car because the audio system in here is really impressive. And that's not something I normally say. This is a Bang & Olufsen system, and it's really good. There are speakers everywhere. I'm not sure how many speakers there are. There is one right here. And I don't know if it's because the journalist before me turned it up, but I can hear music coming out of here more than I can usually hear music coming out of these like cool speakers that are throughout the cabin. I can really tell that it's coming there, and the treble is really hitting my ear. You go into general settings, into sound, and there's a thing called Baosonic Tone and Surround. And if you click in there, you can drag this little white dot around to bright, energetic, warm, or relaxed, and fit it where you want in between there, and also turn on 3D surround. And it really has a noticeable impact. The audio in here is some of the best that I can recall actually noticing. Like I said, the audio just isn't something I normally talk about. It's not something I normally fully test and pay attention to because it's just not my area of expertise. But I've been really impressed with this Bang & Olufsen system. It's really, really good. And it even makes my podcast sound better. By the way, if you're in the mood for a new podcast, might I recommend checking out The Driveway? It's a podcast from Car Gurus, and it may or may not be hosted by yours truly and a couple of my friends. So check that out. If you're in an Acura with a Bang & Olufsen system, I would suggest turning it to bright and energetic, because that's what we are. We are bright and energetic. We're also warm. I think we're warm. So you set it to the tone you want to set it to, and tell me what you think about this Acura MDX. Is this something that could land in your driveway? I would not be getting this car because I cannot afford a $77,000 MDX. But if money were no object, this would have to be a consideration because I've really enjoyed it, and I've really become quite comfortable in here. This is really, sometimes the press cars, when our test weeks are done, you're pretty sad to say goodbye. And this, I think, is going to be one of those weeks. I've really become pretty smitten with this vehicle. I'm a pretty big fan of it. But I'm a little bit of a Honda and Acura fan, so maybe that shouldn't be all that surprising. But this is another good Acura product. Thank you for listening. Let me know what you think. Check back next week, and we'll see you next time.